Hi and welcome back to a new video. In this video I'm going to make a sheep mug. So I'm going to make a cute mug that's like a little bit round, and then I'm going to decorate it as a sheep. So I'm going to add like a little face and some little feet, and I think that will be adorable. And I'm of course making this because it's like spring and it's getting warmer outside, and I thought just a cute little spring mug would be fun. So without any further ado, let's head over to the wheel and get started. I'm first going to take you through the process of throwing a mug. Now I've already shown this in quite some videos, so I will just keep this short. But I start off with centering the clay, and then when it is centered, I flatten it a bit. I'm going to make the mug quite wide and a little bit flatter, so the base of the mug should also be a little bit wider, and that's why I flatten it a bit. And then I open up the clay by pressing my middle finger into the middle of the clay and I pull it outwards. Then I make sure that the side is nice and centered and ready to be pulled up. And then I take a sponge in my right hand and I press towards my left hand on the inside while making an upwards movement. And by doing this, I pull up the walls and make them thinner and higher and turn this piece of clay into a mug. Here the clay became a little bit too wide. What I then like to do is hold both of my hands around this and press it slowly inwards, because I didn't want it to become too wide just yet, because I still needed to pull it up one more time. And then I started shaping the mug. I'm making it a little bit round to kind of get the shape of a sheep. And then I finished throwing and I went over it with a sponge to get rid of any slip or water and to just smooth it out. Then I took a wooden knife and I cut away some excess clay at the bottom here. This will just save me some time when trimming, and I also cleaned my bed with this wooden knife. And then the mug's already finished and I let it dry for one day until it was leather hard. And then when the piece is leather hard, I start trimming it. I first like to start off with a small trimming tool. This just makes it easy for me to smooth out the bottom and make sure it is flat and all centered. And then I cut away some excess clay here from the side. And then when I have the shape that I like, I go over it with a bigger trimming tool to just make it nice and smooth and one flowing shape. And then I also do a little bit of trimming work on the bottom to make a foot ring. And I just do this by cutting away some clay from the middle, just like this. And then the bottom is, as you can see, nice and smooth, and I start working on turning it into a sheep. So the first thing that I like to do when working on an animal mug, I've made many animal mugs in the past, but the first thing I like to do is just take a look at some pictures online, some drawings of the animal to see what shape I want to give it and how I want to decorate it. And so I looked at a few images like this to come up with a way to design the mug. And then I take a piece of clay and I'm now going to work on the head of the sheep. And I first roll this in between my hands, first make it circular, and then I made it a little bit more oval by just moving both of my hands into the same direction. And then I took it in my hands and I flattened it a little bit by putting some pressure on it, and that way I slowly just start shaping it into a shape that I like. And I keep the top a little bit more flat and the bottom a little bit more circular, because I think that will look nice when adding some hair on top and also adding the ears on the sides. And then I take another piece of clay and I again just roll this in between my hands just to get it into the shape that I like, but also to get rid of any folds. It also smooths out the clay. And just like this, I make a little piece of clay on top of the head, which is going to be the hair, and I just press this onto the piece a little bit, but later on we will be attaching it a little bit better. And then I move over to the ears. I just take a little piece of clay for this and I again roll this in between my hands, and then I just roll over it like this with my finger to smooth it out. And then what I like to do is take a little knife and cut it in half. This way it's just very easy for me to make two ears that are exactly the same shape, and then I hold them next to the head to just see if I like them and if I want to make any adjustments. But I actually was quite happy with the shape, so I just keep them like that. But what I did do is make the bottom of the ear a little bit more round, because it was like cut and very sharp, and I always just like to round it a little bit. Then I placed the different pieces of the head on top of the mug to see where I wanted to attach them, and I marked every place with a little knife so that I knew where to attach it. Then I took the pieces away again and I started scratching it. I'm scratching it with a scratching tool from Xim Tools. It works very well in my opinion. Then I apply some vinegar and then I scratch it again. And then I press the head onto the mug. And just like this, I'm going to attach all of the different pieces onto each other. So now I'm also attaching the hair in the same way. And then that's also attached. What I also like to do sometimes is go over the sides with a vinegar brush to just smooth it out a little bit. Then I also just attach the ears like that. then I start drawing on the face of the sheep, and I do this with this tool that you can also use to sign your work. It has like a little metal ball at the top, and I slowly just start pressing into the clay where I want to have the eyes. I first made the eyes quite small, but then I decided I wanted to make them a little bit bigger, so I just did that. And then what I like to do is go over it with a wet brush. This way I can smooth out these sides, because the sides and edges of drawing something in quite wet clay are quite sharp. And by going over it with a wet brush, I just smooth this out and kind of press it downwards. Then I was left with some brush lines, and I didn't really like the look of that. So then I went over the entire face with a wet sponge. And then what I thought was a nice and cute addition was making some little curls on top of the hair here on top of the head. So I'm just like making little curls like this all over the piece here. And this time I didn't really smooth them out, because I kind of like the look of it looking a little bit like sharper. And then the face of the sheep is finished. And then there is one last thing that I would like to add to the sheep, which are cute little legs. So I again roll out some clay in between my hands, and then I cut off some clay at the end so that it has an even thickness everywhere. And I round this a little bit because I want the bottom of the legs to be nice and round. Then I flatten it a little bit more by just rolling over it, and then I cut them quite sharp, as you can see, because I will be attaching them to the side of the mug. And just like that I make 3 more legs, so that I have 4 legs for the front of the mug and also for the back of the mug, because I thought that would look cute. Then I held the legs against the mug to see where I wanted to attach them, and then I again marked the places where I'm going to attach them, and I attached them again in the same way as I did with the face. So I scratched them, put some vinegar on it, and then scratched it again, and then I attach the legs. I like to attach both of the legs at the same time, so that's easy for me to see if they are aligned, but you could also attach them one by one, whatever you'd like. And then what I also like to do is go over it with a sponge to just smooth out the rim where I attached it, and just work away any small imperfections if needed. And then I also attached the front legs in the same way as I did with the legs at the back. And then one last thing that I thought would be fun is add some little curls to make it look like a little bit more fluffy and soft, and also just add some texture to the side, because otherwise it may have been a little bit boring. So I really thought this would just pull the whole mug together and make it one nice looking piece. So I'm using the same tool as I used for the face, and I'm slowly just carving some curls in the sides, and I'm just putting them all over the outside of the mug. I didn't do all of them on camera because it was quite stressful to do, honestly, but here's the final result. So the sheep is now finished and ready to dry before going into the kiln for a biscuit fire. And then after that it is time to glaze it, and I'm going to decorate it with underglaze. And the first underglaze that I'm going to use is iceberg blue, and I'm putting this on the inside and the entire outside of the mug except for the face and the legs. I thought it would be cute to just make it light blue. I was also thinking about making it gray, but I felt a little bit boring, so I just went for a lighter blue because I thought it would be cute. And as you can see, I just carefully apply this with a smaller brush around the face and around the legs, and I'm using a bigger brush to glaze the entire outside. And I applied this glaze for 3 coats, which is quite important, I think. When you apply 1 coat, all of the brush strokes and lines are very visible, and if you apply 3 coats it will have a more even look and an even color. So I would recommend to do 3 coats, otherwise you will probably see all of the little lines from the small brush around the face and everything, and I just don't think that looks really nice. So I applied 3 coats. It was quite some work, but I think it was worth it in the end. And then I move over to the next glaze, which is a white underglaze, also from Emiko by the way, and I use this to glaze the face. I'm not glazing the eyes and the little mouth because I will make those black later on, but now I'm just glazing the face and also the ears. And I also glazed the top part and the biggest part of the legs white as well. And then I added a black underglaze to the face, and I actually used the same tool that I used to make the texture as kind of like a brush. I could have also used a small brush, but I was afraid that I would mess it up, and I could work a little bit more detailed with this tool. So what I just do is dip it into the glaze and then apply a little bit of glaze onto every piece, and I just work very slowly and very carefully to just put the glaze just like in the lines that I carved, because I don't think you can take it off if you mess this up, unfortunately. So I was quite happy that it went well. And then I also added a a small black line at the bottom of the legs to make like little feet, because I thought, well, that would also look cute. I'm just going for a cute sheep here, if that wasn't clear yet. And then I used a darker blue underglaze for the little hairs here on top of the head, because I just like that to have a different color from the rest of the piece to just stand out a little bit more. And I also decided to glaze the curls of the sheep blue as well. This was very stressful, I'm not gonna lie. I only recorded 3 of these curls because I did the rest off camera, because it was just so stressful, and recording it at the same time made it even more stressful. But I'm quite happy with how it turned out. Not all of the curls are as perfect as the others, but I do think it looks nice and works well with the texture that I made. And I just did that with all of the curls all around the piece. And then I was finally done with underglazing. It took me like 2 hours to underglaze this piece, which was kind of crazy, and I normally don't really take that much time to glaze one piece, but I think it was worth it, and I quite enjoyed doing it as well. And then the last thing that I needed to do was apply a clear glaze all over the piece. I did glaze the whole piece, but it was just with underglaze, and underglaze isn't food safe, so it's important to put a clear glaze on top of it so that it is nice and shiny and also food safe, and that way I can actually drink out of this mug. And I'm applying 2 coats of clear glaze, and it's also a clear glaze from Amico, and I'm using a big brush because that makes it easier for me to apply it at an even thickness. And then what I also always do is clean the bottom to make sure I don't have any glaze there, so that it won't melt onto the kiln shelf. So I just rub it on top of this wet piece of fabric so that it is nice and clean and can go into the kiln for a glaze fire. And then here is the final result. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I hope you like it too. And that was it for this video. I hope you like this mug as much as I do. And if you're making one of these and you're going to post it on Instagram, please tag me at Calder van Andel, because I would love to see it. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this mug, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye!